Here's a bit of history perhaps you do not know. Did you know that in 1818, a certain Scottish physician named Dr. Hugh learned of some fascinating experiments with the legs of dead frogs? We'll put a frog on the screen. We wanted to get a picture of a dead frog, but we knew that we would be in trouble with the Humane Society, so this is a live frog. Dead frogs, when electricity is hooked up to their legs, he learned, they would twitch and jerk. Perfect, he said, that's what I need to do. I need to do the similar experiment, not with a dead frog, but with a whole person, but dead. And so he arranged for a corpse. Went to the local jail, found a condemned man who was willing to be paid a little money to buy some gin and beer and his final meal of beef. And after the hanging, the corpse was delivered in perfect form except for the broken neck. And there in his laboratory, Dr. Hugh, with his lab assistants and a room full of spectators, began to experiment with electricity. And sure enough, when they wired up the spinal cord and let that electricity flow, the body began to twitch. They wired up the chest, and indeed, it began to expand and contract. They wired up the face, and that corpse was able to go through a whole litany of facial expressions. And I suppose you would too with all that electricity running through you. They finally went to the legs, and indeed, exactly as with the dead frogs, when the electrode was hooked to the leg, it caused it to kick, by the way, knocking down a nearby assistant who was not expecting the kick. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, the corpse had responded in every way Dr. Hugh had hoped for, except one. It did not come back to life. And we chuckle at the crude experiments of a couple centuries ago, but the fact of the matter is, today, we are still in pursuit of the very same quest. Nobody wants to die. Can somebody find a way we can beat death in this race? Have you heard of cryonics? Cryonics, have you heard of it? One of the big sports stories a few months ago in my homeland concerned the body of Ted Williams, one of the great American baseball stars. His kids were in court fighting over the body because one of the kids wanted to preserve the body for a deep freeze. That's what cryonics is. In fact, can we put there are the deep freezes. What cryonics does is it takes the body, reduces it down into that frozen state with the hope that eventually a cure for that deadly disease can be discovered and that individual can actually literally be brought back to life. That's the hope of cryonics. Now, if you want to try cryonics, you need to be prepared for a rather significant investment, and that is, if you're going to have your entire body, how do they put it here? It's called a body suspension. That will cost $120,000. If you want to go with something a little less expensive, you can have just your head or your brain preserved. That's called neurosuspensions, and that'll only cost you $50,000 and up, I suppose, depending on the size of the head. Either way, head or whole body, cryonics, the whole point of Dr. Hugh's experiments as well, somehow we've got to find a way to beat death. You think about it, ladies and gentlemen, I can't imagine a single human being that in a moment of utter candor does not want to live. You say, oh, Dwight, but what about assisted suicide? Assisted suicide is because the individual has confronted circumstances that simply make life not worth living. Remove those circumstances. I don't know of a single person on this planet that would wish to die. We want to live and live and live. But the fact of the matter is, nobody yet has been able to find the handle on unlocking this reality of death. Health foods, we in the West, all the health fads, gung-ho that we are, we simply cannot forestall the inevitable. In fact, one of our late-night comedians in the States says that whenever he sees someone out jogging for health, out jogging on the sidewalks, he rolls down the window and shouts, "You're going to die anyway." And of course, he's right. You're going to die anyway. The fact of the matter is tonight, we are all dying already. Did you know that? They have discovered that the moment we begin living, our cells begin the process of being depleted with water. In fact, do you know that every 24 hours you lose, unrecoverable, you lose 50,000 brain cells. Every single day. It's no wonder we're forgetting. In fact, what do they call that thing that condition where you forget? I can't remember the name of that condition, but you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We are slowly evaporating away. It's the law of entropy, the thermodynamics. It's just we're eventually all going to waste away one day. A Dutchman named Midas Dekkers has reminded us that, in fact, if you dust your house, and I don't know how often you dust your house, but if you will go home and simply run your finger on the top of that piano and look at the dust, you are in that dust. Let me put Decker's words. This is true. Decker's words on the screen here. More than 50% of the finest household dust is made up of flakes of skin. If you think you're losing yourself, just look on the top of the cupboard, run your finger across it, and you'll be standing face to face with the state in which you'll find yourself in only a few decades' time. One slap of your hand on the bed mattress, and you'll be flurrying in the air. Isn't that something? What's up with that? Cell by cell, dust by dust. We have already begun dying. In fact, would you do this right now? Would you turn to the person seated beside you and shake her hand and say, "I'm glad to know I'm not the only one dying tonight." Would you do that? Just shake that hand and thank them that you are not the only one. Yeah, we're all going. We're all going. Well, at least we're able to bring a smile to such a rather morose subject. The fact of the matter is, in the interview tonight, in the interview with Errol a few moments ago on the front cafe table, I'm telling you what, it's pretty hard to smile through a subject as somber as death. And that's why you and I tend to busy ourselves. Some are suggesting we are absolutely, frantically trying to avoid a recognition of the inevitable. Let's put his words on the screen, T.S. Eliot. As he put it, we are distracted from distraction by distraction. We're all going to be dead. We know we're going to die. But doesn't it seem a bit unreasonable? Doesn't it seem a bit illogical that we wish to not be preoccupied with what is inevitably coming to us and instead focus on what is such a short span of time? Ladies and gentlemen, you think about it, we're going to spend more time in the ground beneath than the ground above. Isn't that true? More time below than above. And yet we refuse to confront the impending reality, and that is, I am going to die. Given enough time, I will die. Tolstoy. Can I put him on the screen? Gave some very deep thought to death. But what a bleak and pessimistic conclusion. These are Tolstoy's words, Leo Tolstoy. Once a man has realized that death is the end of everything, there is nothing worse than life either. You lose when you die, you lose when you live. Is that all we get left with? Well, obviously, if you live to be 60 or you live to be 70 or you live to be 80, if everything's going to disintegrate in the end, and there is that scientific worldview that suggests that's all that we have to look forward to, obviously, who wants to be preoccupied with finally saying goodbye to everything in life? And so we forestall it.